Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Bob Bullock, do solemnly swear
I, Bob Bullock, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of Lieutenant Governor of the State of Texas
of the office of Lieutenant Governor of the State of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It is now with great pleasure I introduce the Honorable Gonzalo Barrientos of Travis County.
Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Texans, it is now a pleasure and a privilege for me to introduce to you the distinguished Lieutenant Governor of the State of Texas, the Honorable Bob Bullock.
Thank you very much. Thank you. President Bush and the very vivacious former First Lady of this country, Barbara Bush. To my good friend, Governor-elect George W. Bush in Laurel. Speaker and Mrs. Laney, to the distinguished former governors and lieutenant governors of Texas and former first ladies, Chief Justice and Mrs. Phillips, state officials, Dr. Graham, distinguished guests, family, friends, and my fellow Texans, thank you. For the second time in 4 years, the people of Texas have given me the privilege of serving as your Lieutenant Governor. My wife, Jan, thanks you. My family thanks you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. The honor that you hand me is a grave responsibility. And I accept that responsibility, Governor Bush, with humility, and I ask for your prayers and your blessings in the times ahead. If I may digress for a moment, as a father, I know the immense pride that President Bush and Mrs. Bush have today to be here at the inauguration of their son as Governor of Texas. And I want you to know, President and Mrs. Bush, that I share that pride with you, and all Texans share that pride with you. And as an American, I thank you for your service to your state and to your country, and for helping bring us world peace. And as a Texan, welcome home. We're glad to have you. An inaugural ceremony is a good time to stop, take a good look at our state, and to give thanks that we live here, that we work here. It's also a proper time to take stock of what we plan to do for the future. Our Texas today has a very vibrant economy, an expanding one, vast industries of manufacturing, electronics, petrochemicals, vast natural resources. We have the nation's finest agricultural industry, which provides the food and fiber for the world. But above all, Governor Bush, we have the second largest state. 18 million people who never gave up, who never lost their faith in themselves or in their state when times were bad. And yes, today's Texas is beautiful and majestic, but it's also time that, as Governor Bush and I take these oaths today, that we look to the future and what remains to be done. We have a dream about a better way of life. We're compassionate, we're caring. Our vision has never been obscured, and our hearts are still in the right place, but there are some major functions of government that frankly do not work as our people would like. Schools that fall short in education, adult and juvenile crime, an unacceptable welfare system, outdated civil justice laws, and a state government that all too often must govern on a crisis-to-crisis basis. Reforming and changing these major functions should be our top priority, and the goals can be accomplished by a leadership and by a legislature that works without personal or political rhetoric and that works in a bipartisan effort, Governor Bush, with no agenda but a Texas agenda of what's best for Texas. For my part, and Governor Bush, Speaker Laney, I pledge to you and to the legislature and to the people of Texas that I will give every bit of energy, every bit of expertise that I have in working for you and with you for a better Texas. I think the real question is, how do we seize on the next opportunity to move Texas ahead? We started several years ago with the Texas Performance Review. We shook up the bureaucracy, and today performance now drives the budget instead of the status quo. We're cutting costs and holding government accountable, and will not stop. We balanced the budget without new taxes, and we will do so again. We're meeting our current responsibilities with direct action and straight talk, and we'll continue to do that. In my first 4 years in office, we put out some brush fires in this Capitol building back here that had been burning for a generation. We rewrote the Texas Penal Code and built badly needed jails. We increased spending billions of dollars on public education. And in return, we demanded that schools be held accountable to the students and to the people and to the parents. Court challenges to our mental health and retardation system came to an end, just as they did in our criminal justice system. And now, for the first time in a generation, Governor Bush, we have a chance to save a generation of young people and the generation after that. We can, if we meet the challenges of the day, head on and work together. George Christian, recently a police officer, a veteran police officer, a streetwise police officer, made the comment that juvenile crime was so great in his community that he had all but given up on a generation of young people and was now working on the next generation. I will not give up on a generation of young Texans, and neither should you. In the last 4 years, we've created the framework for a strategic plan for our future. And the time is now at hand for all Texans to join with your leaders in implementing that plan with faith and confidence in our future and ourselves. And we must make sure that those guidelines for the future are not simply just words on paper, but that our words are backed by action. Texans know the difference between Band-Aids and basics. And Texans know the value of our success will be measured in human opportunity and potential, just as surely as they're measured in terms of dollars and cents. Governor Bush and Speaker Laney, to all the public officials who are present, our fellow Texans will judge us at the end of this session. And they will judge us at the end of our terms that we take the oath of office for today. But it will be history that will be the final judge of our work in the next generation. It must show that we are willing to do the right thing for Texas. God bless you, and God bless Texas forever. Thank you very much.
The oath of office will now be administered to Governor-elect the Honorable George W. Bush by Chief Justice John R. Phillips.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of Governor of the State of Texas,
of office of Governor of the State of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state.
and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It is my distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce to you His Excellency, the Governor of Texas, the Honorable George W. Bush.
Thank you very much. Speaker Laney, Governor Bullock, Mom and Dad, my beloved wife and 2 children, family members, thousands of friends from all over the state and all over the country, fellow Texans, thank you all for being here. In this wonderful crowd, there are many special guests. I would like to especially recognize 5. They are the governors of the Mexican states closest to our border. Will you please help me welcome them? Their presence is a clear sign of the importance of the relationship between Texas and Mexico. Friends bring out the best in each other. May our friendship bring much good to both of our countries. I stand where others have stood before in front of this just magnificent Capitol. Moments ago, my hand was on Sam Houston's own Bible, simple and worn, that has consecrated the oath-taking of many other Texas governors. Once again, all Texas witnesses the special moment when the people transfer the solemn responsibilities of the office of governor from one person to another. My predecessor served our state well. The example she set gives heart to those who battle adversity and hope to those who wonder if opportunity is limited. Today, as Governor Richards leaves office, Texas owes her a debt of gratitude. After the storm of the campaign, the transfer of authority from one governor to another happens in relative calm. So much so that we run the risk of taking this special moment for granted. We must not. Our Republican form of government only endures because Texans will its continued existence. Though other Texas governors lived in much different times and faced different challenges and spoke in their own way upon this platform on their inaugural days, certain things are unchanged. I share the sense of dedication that other new governors must have felt. Like them, I understand that I am responsible to all of the people of Texas. I share the excitement of those who've come to this job before me, their sense of purpose, their eagerness to get on with the task ahead. I share my predecessor's feelings of humility. The duties that I assume can best be met with the guidance of one greater than ourselves. I ask for God's help. I share my predecessor's knowledge that progress is only possible with the cooperation of the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, and the legislative bodies they represent. I am eager to work with you, Governor Bullock and Speaker Laney. Our task is to serve the great people of Texas, to serve them well, constantly and unstintingly. Together, we will do just that. I share the energy of one newly scrutinized by Texas. During the campaign, I sought to let the people know what was in my heart by speaking plainly and simply about my vision for our state's future. It was that philosophy and that vision which were endorsed in November. After traveling our state, seeking the vote, I have seen what those who've held this office before me knew. Texas is a mighty land, full of loving and caring people. Texans dream big dreams and achieve those dreams when freed to do so. As governor, I will call upon the best within every Texan as we confront our challenges, great tasks, and important missions. Among the most important of these is restoring government to its proper role. A few moments ago, when I took the oath of office, I pledged to defend two constitutions, those of the United States and that of Texas. You expect me to honor that oath, and I will. You expect me to heed to the principles of those documents, and I will. As your governor, I will start by defending our forefathers' wisdom in defining separate roles for our federal and state governments. That wisdom was expressed in the Bill of Rights' 10th Amendment, which gives to the states all powers not specifically granted to the federal government. The spirit of that amendment has been forgotten in recent decades. I pledge to you it will be forgotten no more. As your governor, I will use every resource at my disposal to make the federal government and Washington heed this simple truth: Texans can run Texas. As we ask Washington to return to Texas the power to innovate, to set our own course, to direct our own lives, we must also be consistent at home. If we trust Texans to make the best decision for Texas, and we do, we must also trust Texans to make the best decisions for their local communities and local schools. My guiding principle will be government if necessary, but not necessarily government. By trusting Texans, the state is more likely to focus on its principal responsibilities: good and safe streets, excellent schools, help for those who cannot help themselves, and respect for private property. By trusting Texans, we free them to succeed. I recognize that by doing so, we run the risk that sometimes some of them will fail. But mistakes made closest to the people are those most easily corrected. I also recognize freedom without responsibility is simply license. For the last 30 years, our culture has steadily replaced personal responsibility with collective guilt. This must end. The new freedom Texas seeks must be matched with renewed personal responsibility. The very future of our society depends on it. Responsibility starts at home. It starts with responsible families. I wish I knew the law to cause people to love one another. I do not. But I do know our laws must be written to strengthen our families, not diminish them. Every piece of legislation that crosses my desk will be judged by whether it keeps our families together, safe, and strong. If we are to save a generation of young people, our juvenile and criminal laws must hold people responsible for what they do. Discipline and love go hand in hand. If we want our young Texans to learn to make correct choices, the consequences of bad behavior must be certain and must be clear. If we are to end dependency upon government, we must change the welfare system. Oftentimes, the present system diminishes personal responsibility and rewards illegitimacy. For too many of the able-bodied, it says you cannot succeed. This is not the Texas way. If we are to prepare our children for their exciting future, our education laws must place the power over our schools in the hands of our local communities and local citizens. We must empower our teachers and administrators and school boards and parents to design the schools that best fit their community's needs. Texas must set high standards for our schools, free our local districts to innovate, and hold our educators responsible for results. Texans understand that governors and governments do not create prosperity. Producers, inventors, and entrepreneurs do. What government does is create an environment in which people are willing to take economic risks that creates jobs. There are many ways for a business to fail. We must not allow one of them to be a frivolous lawsuit, so that every small business person in Texas has a better chance to succeed. Texas must end the junk lawsuits that clog our courts and threaten our producers. Doing so will expand our job base so that anyone in Texas who wants a job can find one. Texas is ready for government that works. Texans know the more government tries to do, the less it accomplishes. Texans want government to concentrate on a few critical areas and do them well. But most of all, Texans desire for ourselves and the coming generation the liberty to dare, to risk, and to succeed. This is our mission. It is clear and bold. We must make Texas a beacon state. It is within the power of every Texan, working together to mold a bright future. I ask for your help, your commitment, and your prayers for the work ahead. I feel the wind at our backs. My enthusiasm for our mission is exceeded only by my confidence that we can succeed. And when we do, those who feel left behind will have new hope. Those who have grown cynical will begin to care. And our children will grow up in a more prosperous and peaceful Texas. The history of our special land tells us this: what Texans can dream, Texans can do. To be your governor is an unimaginable honor. Thank you for your confidence in me, and God bless Texas.
And so George Walker Bush is now the 46th governor of
Radically controlled House and Senate. Will he accomplish his goals? Well, Dan Molina and Linda Laurel continue our coverage from Austin with more on that.
And the ceremony is just wrapping up. The Texas Longhorn Band just struck up a chorus of Texas Our Texas. This has been a very emotional ceremony for the first family and the former first family of our nation.
You know, Linda, as we were watching this, you couldn't help but feel the warmth, the emotion between George Bush, the governor, and George Bush's family. It was a very moving thing to see. There is unmistakably a great deal of humanity in this man. A lot of that came out as I was talking to him a couple of days ago. He said that the one thing he was very afraid of was that he would cry when all of this began. Well, he didn't cry, but his parents did.
He
did indeed. Let's take a look now at a portrait of George Bush, the man. What a long, long road from the beginning of the Bush campaign over a year ago. George Bush, the man, the politician, changed over that period, especially during the weeks leading up to today, the inauguration. The period when he realized that he actually would be the governor of Texas, that on January 17th he would take the oath of office.
You don't think about taking the oath of office during a campaign. But once I became elected, once the people spoke, then you begin to think about the governor's mansion where other gubernatorial families have lived, or the inaugural speech, or the state of the state, or relations with Governor Bullock and Speaker Laney. The very same relations that other effective governors had to establish, whether it had been 30 years ago or 80 years ago. And we sit here several days before the swearing in, and I'm ready to become the governor. Not only from an organizational perspective, but psychologically, ready to assume the office and to get on with 4 exciting years.
You're the son of a president of the United States. You've watched your father go through similar events in his life. That has to have occurred to you. Now it's you taking the spotlight, you on the dais. Have you two talked about that? How has that settled?
And that's probably best left unsaid. We're an emotional family, and we express our emotions often outwardly. I just hope I will contain my emotions, because I then have to give an address to the state of Texas. There was a very poignant moment in the course of the campaign which really defined that which you were trying to describe. That was in Dallas, Texas, when I had my first big political fundraiser, signaling to Bush supporters that I could raise money to compete with Governor Richards. And at that fundraiser, we had 2 distinguished couples as guests. One was Nolan and Ruth Ryan, and they were introduced on the stage. And then Mother and Dad were introduced on the stage. And then Laura and I were introduced on the stage, and for the first time in my life, I walked on the stage as kind of the central character. And my parents were in a supporting role. And Mother was weeping, and my dad was not weeping, but choked with emotion. And it was an unbelievably powerful, poignant moment that only, and Laura was much a part of it, but that 4 of us shared. I don't think anybody else knew what was going on, but it was, in essence, the passing of the baton. And fortunately, I did not have to give a speech shortly thereafter. There was some time in which I could go eat and shake hands and stuff, but it was an emotional moment. So I have experienced the emotion of taking the mantle, so to speak, and seeing my dad, who I love more than life, becoming, you know, not relegated in the right word, but being a witness to history as opposed to being history itself.
Another moment that will forever be a part of the Bush legacy is the now famous shot with which the governor-to-be bagged a kildee, a protected bird instead of a dove. Will he continue to be an outdoorsman now that he's in office?
I think I'll be fishing more than hunting. But I have yet to really say this, but that kildee shot was an amazing shot. Low on the horizon, very few hunters could have knocked it down the way I did.
Thanks a lot for the visit, sir.
You bet.
You know, it undoubtedly won't be very long before we are criticizing Governor Bush, scrutinizing his moves very carefully, but he begins with a lot of goodwill, the good wishes of a lot of people, because of who he is. We'll be back with more of News 2 Houston right after this.
Have you applied for Social Security disability and received a letter like this denying your benefits? I'm attorney Jerry Lynch. My partner and I have helped hundreds of people.
A sky, the threat of rain was there all morning, and they still may get some rain before the day is over.
I think they will. As a matter of fact, I think rain is a pretty sure bet, as a matter of fact, but it doesn't look like it's going to be any time in the next hour or so. We do have rain on the radar around Austin. Let's take a look at the current conditions here in town. Under cloudy skies at 68 degrees at Intercontinental. Hobby is 71. Galveston at 66. Humidity is still high this afternoon at 84%. Winds are easterly at 13 miles an hour. Pressure is falling slightly at 29.90. As far as the forecast for today, we look for a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, 70% tonight and tomorrow morning. Some of those thunderstorms could be severe, possible heavy rain, hail, and gusty winds. So it's going to be rather busy in the weather center, I think, tonight and tomorrow. So keep your eyes out for that.
And keep the umbrellas handy. Okay, thanks, Orlin. We will be back with more News to Houston at noon, right after this commercial break. Stay with us.
Sworn into office as the state's 46th chief executive.
That's right, and our team coverage does continue. Let's go back to Austin and join Linda Laurel for more. Linda?
And the celebration will continue throughout the day and into the evening. Behind me, you can see the thousands of people milling about the grounds of the state capitol. A lot of them getting ready to go to this tent behind me to partake of some good old Texas barbecue. Of course, now that George Bush is in the governor's mansion, that means that Ann Richards is on to a new phase of her life. News 2 Houston's Ron Stone Jr. takes a look back at the Richards years.
It was called the People's March, a bit of good old-fashioned populism to usher in a new governor. If you were a Texas Democrat on January 15th, 1991, you felt the sun on your shoulders and knew you had a star to light up the night.
The governor of Texas, Ann Richards.
That star was Ann Richards, former state treasurer. Her accent suggested good old girl, but she spoke of a new Texas. Through her administration, she courted big business and movie makers and tourists.
It was important in everything that we did here to make certain to keep that vision in mind, that Texas be thought of as the place to be.
She tried to make the state safer by overseeing a massive prison construction program. She tried to fill the state's coffers by pushing for and getting a lottery. And she tried to make government more diverse by appointing more minorities and more women to state positions than any other state governor.
No more taxes! No more taxes!
But there were sounds of discord during the Richards era. Despite protests, a modified corporate income tax was passed. The state budget ballooned to over $70 million. Teachers were promised a 5% pay raise by Richards. They didn't get it. Richards was supposed to have unerring political sense, but she faltered when she appointed Lena Guerrero to the Railroad Commission. Guerrero lied about her academic background and lost her job. Bob Kruger lost his job, too, after Richards appointed him to the U.S. Senate. Kruger couldn't hold on to his seat, and now Texas has 2 Republican senators.
I'm terrific. You look great. Thank you.
It also has a Republican governor, and all Democrats can do is remember a day 4 years ago when they could cheer a woman and a promise. Ron Stone, Jr., News 2, Houston.
Richards was not on hand for the ceremony here today. She is in California. We'll be back with more right after this.
If you have Medicare, I have important news for you. You are an executive with AT&T.
His grandfather was in the U.S. Senate. His father was president. And today, George W. Bush took the oath of office to become the governor of Texas. CNN's Tony Clark reports.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
George W. Bush, the eldest son of former President and Mrs. Bush, became that family's political standard bearer Tuesday as he was sworn in as Texas' 46th governor.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As they did during most of the campaign, George and Barbara Bush stayed in the background, keeping the spotlight on the man everyone here calls George W.
I share the sense of dedication that other new governors must have felt. Like them, I understand that I am responsible to all of the people of Texas.
Bush takes the helm of a state that is in good financial shape. Unemployment is down, so is crime. What Texas needs now, according to the new governor, is independence from Washington.
As your governor, I will use every resource at my disposal to make the federal government and Washington heed this simple truth. Texans can run Texas.
George Bush's victory over Democrat Ann Richards marks a political shift for Texas. In addition to the governor's office, Texas Republicans now hold both U.S. Senate seats, nearly half of the state Senate, and more than a third of the state House. Yet the state's lieutenant governor and the legislative leaders are Democrats.
George Bush has indicated that he's going to take, to a large extent, a fairly bipartisan approach.
Bush's predecessor, Democrat Ann Richards, was in California Tuesday. It is a Texas tradition that the outgoing governor be out of town on Inauguration Day. But in another Texas tradition, she left a hot meal waiting at the governor's mansion for the Bushes.
I believe Ann Richards is happier than she's been in years.
As for George W. Bush's new job, Texas' only other Republican governor, Bill Clement, says being governor of Texas is the next best thing to being president. Tony Clark, CNN, Austin.
You may remember this from last week. Congressional staffers blasted away at each other with toy guns, not because of political differences, but as an exercise to stimulate creative thinking about ways to cut the budget deficit. Today, House Budget Chairman John Kasich and a consultant who arranged the gunfight surveyed some of the ideas people came up with.
The idea of this national garage sale is particularly interesting, and I'll tell you why. The reason why it's interesting is, again, it's something that's simple, that brings Americans into the process.
I was appalled, absolutely appalled, at how negative everybody was towards this. This is a problem that people think can't be solved. They come around, and everywhere we went, as we traveled the country, all we got was people saying, well, the crazy thing is, he thinks he can do it.
Representative Kasich says the whole process is an effort to let Americans know that people in Congress care about their concerns. That's all for this edition of Inside Politics. I'm Judy Woodruff. Let's go now to Lou and Natalie.
An inaugural ceremony is a good time to stop, take a good look at our state, and to give thanks that we live here, that we work here. It's also a proper time to take stock of what we plan to do for the future. Our Texas today has a very vibrant economy, an expanding one, vast industries of manufacturing, electronics, petrochemicals, vast natural resources. We have the nation's finest agricultural industry, which provides the food and fiber for the world. But above all, Governor Bush, we have the second largest state. 18 million people who never gave up, who never lost their faith in themselves or in their state when times were bad. And yes, today's Texas is beautiful and majestic, but it's also time that, as Governor Bush and I take these oaths today, that we look to the future and what remains to be done. We have a dream about a better way of life.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Bob Bullock, do solemnly swear.
I, Bob Bullock, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
That I will faithfully execute the duties.
Of the office of Lieutenant Governor of the State of Texas.
Of the office of Lieutenant Governor of the State of Texas.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution and laws of the United States.
The Constitution and laws of the United States.
And of this state.
And of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It is now with great pleasure I introduce the Honorable Gonzalo Barrientos of Travis County.
Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Texans, it is now a pleasure and a privilege for me to introduce to you the distinguished Lieutenant Governor of the state of Texas, the Honorable Bob Bullock.
Thank you very much. Thank you. President Bush and the very vivacious former First Lady of this country, Barbara Bush. To my good friend, Governor-elect George W. Bush and Laura. Speaker and Mrs. Laney, to the distinguished former governors and lieutenant governors of Texas and former First Ladies, Chief Justice and Mrs. Phillips, state officials, Dr. Graham, distinguished guests, families, friends, and my fellow Texans, thank you. For the second time in 4 years, the people of Texas have given me the privilege of serving as your Lieutenant Governor. My wife, Jan, thanks you. My family thanks you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. The honor that you hand me is a grave responsibility, and I accept that responsibility, Governor Bush, with humility, and I ask for your prayers, your blessings in the times ahead. If I may digress for a moment, as a father, I know the immense pride that President Bush and Mrs. Bush have today to be here at the inauguration of their son as Governor of Texas. And I want you to know, President and Mrs. Bush, that I share that pride with you, and all Texans share that pride with you. And as an American, I thank you for your service to your state and to your country, and for helping bring us world peace. And as a Texan, welcome home. We're glad to have you. Compassionate, we're caring. Our vision has never been obscured, and our hearts are still in the right place, but there are some major functions of government that frankly do not work as our people would like. Schools that fall short in education, adult and juvenile crime, an unacceptable welfare system, outdated civil justice laws, and a state government that all too often must govern on a crisis-to-crisis basis. Reforming and changing these major functions should be our top priority, and the goals can be accomplished by leadership and by a legislature that works without personal or political rhetoric, and that works in a bipartisan effort, Governor Bush, with no agenda but a Texas agenda of what's best for Texas. For my part, and Governor Bush, Speaker Laney, I pledge to you and